Hello everyone, Data here, and welcome to my annual analysis and predictions for the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. The 2025 NHL postseason is right around the corner, and all 8 first-round matchups are set. Last year, I believe I went 8 for 8 on the first-round matchups. From the second round, things started falling apart from there, but I believe I went 8 for 8. I think the year before that, I think I went 6 for 8. So hopefully for 2025, it can just be as successful as I walk you through a quick little analysis of each series, who I'm going with and why, and then all the way towards, of course, the eventual Stanley Cup champion. My final last year was way off between the Rangers and the Canucks, but like I said, 8 for 8 in round 1, so hopefully my analysis of these first round matchups will be helpful for you as you're making your own bracket as well. Stay tuned to the end of the video as we will have a channel bracket challenge with some prizes for our winners. But I'd also love to hear where you agree or disagree with me on certain points of what I'll be saying for each series. I know in theory I could maybe do a 15-20 minute video on each one. I'll try to keep it condensed for you, maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes on each series. Just going over what I believe to be will be the most interesting points going into each series. So getting started on the left side of your screen here, the first matchup will start off with the President's Trophy winning Jets in the Central 1 spot, facing off against the Wildcard 2 spot St. Louis Blues. Now, this matchup is not as slam dunk as you think. Spoiler alert, I do have the Jets taking it, but it's not as slam dunk as you might think. The Jets versus the Blues, of the 8 first round matchups, this is one of just 2 where both teams are coming into the postseason having won at least 7 of their last 10 games. Of course, the Jets, number 1 in the league in a lot of important things, 56 wins, the most, 116 points. They're tied for the 3rd highest in goals for. They're by far the best in goals against. No other team allowed less than 200. They're at 191. The second best home record in the West at 30 wins. The best away record at 26-15-0. And as I said, 7-3-0 in their last 10 games, 7 wins coming into the postseason here. Now, meanwhile, St. Louis has been incredibly hot as well. They made a big push to the postseason, getting past Calgary, getting that wild card spot. Also a good record at home, not as good on the road, but 7-2-1 in their last 10. They ended off on a win, as did Winnipeg moving into this postseason. But you got to think that the biggest difference maker will be the maybe Hart Trophy winner, Connor Hellebuyck. As you look at the goals for per game, the Jets are scoring 0.3 goals more, but they're allowing 0.6, over half a goal less per game when compared to St. Louis. And the power play, 28.9 versus 22.1, penalty kill 79.4 versus 74.2. You got to go with the Jets in a lot of different categories. Then we look at the scoring. Kyle Connor, 41 goal season. Mark Scheifele, 1 goal shy of 40 as well. So that's almost 2 40-goal scorers for the Jets. 2 point per game plus players. Kyle Connor almost hit 100. Nick Ehlers being out is probably the biggest X factor of the Jets postseason. But when it comes to taking on the St. Louis Blues, I do have them going on through. 63 points in 69 games from Nick Ehlers. Him coming back would be huge. Josh Morrissey, 62. Huge step forward this season for Gabe Vilardi, who scored 61. Cole Perfetti at 22 scores 50 points. Pionk just signed that big extension. After that, the depth scoring isn't as there quite as much. But the postseason is a totally different game, ladies and gentlemen. If you can get your top end scoring, and not that your depth guys do nothing, but if they can do the forechecking, they can limit the opposing team's top scorers. That allows the guys at the top to do their thing. That goes a long way. Adam Lowry doesn't need to score a point per game. He can play his role. Now, who are those big players in St. Louis? Just 1 point per game plus player in Robert Thomas. Big year from him for the playmaker. 60 assists, 81 points. Jordan Kyrou, a quiet 36 goal season. You got to give it to him, 70 points. Dylan Holloway, after he got out of Edmonton, spread his wings and flew, 63 points. Bushnevich, 57. Braden Shen, 50. Jake Neighbors. Zach Bolduc in his rookie season. Then even Jimmy Snuggerud, 4 points in 7 games since he came on the scene. The St. Louis Blues are in a good spot moving forward. I love the acquisition of Cam Fowler as well. Colton Braco's playing great. The Blues of the future, yes, Braden Shen's going to get older and all that, but with Rob Thomas locked up, Kyrou locked up, then Holloway, Snuggerud, Bolduc, all these guys, Dvorsky, all kinds of players that are going to be in the system coming up. There is much to be excited about for the St. Louis Blues, but facing Winnipeg in round 1, it's going to be tough. Jordan Binnington, yes, he had a solid season, solid enough, especially in the second half, 900 save percentage, 2.69 goals against average, but compared to Winnipeg and Connor Hellebuyck's numbers, I don't know if the Blues scores are going to be able to break through Hellebuyck enough. Again, looking at their goal scorers, you have Kyrou at 36, Holloway 26, Jake Neighbors at 22. Yes, you have 5 20-plus goal scorers. Meanwhile, the Jets have just 4. but I'm more confident in the Jets offense by maybe not by that much, but just so much more confident in their defense. So having said all of that, I side with the Winnipeg Jets in this series. I believe I could push it to 6 games though. I got to give it to them. I think that any win that the Blues get would have to be Binnington standing on his head, and it won't be that they blew out Hellebuck for a 6-5 win or something. I think any win the Blues could get would be in that 2-1, 3-2 kind of range, but I think that they could steal a couple of how hot they've been getting into the postseason. I don't think they'll force 7. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 5, but I'm going to give them a couple games and say the Jets move through in 6. Now on to the next series, Dallas versus Colorado. We've seen this one before. The second in the Central versus the third in the second versus the third in the Central, sorry. So the Jets versus the Blues was 1st versus 14th in the league. This is now 5th versus 8th in the league. That's tied with the closest matchup of positions in this first round. LA versus Edmonton is 6 versus 9, so 3 spots. 5 versus 8, 3 spots, Dallas and Colorado. So it's tough that it's a first round matchup, but that's the league, unfortunately. So the goals for here are even, where the Stars and the Avs have both scored 3.4 per game. Goals against goes in Dallas's favor, and I'm surprised it's not by more, because you have Jake Ottinger here in Dallas, and you have their fruit salad here in Colorado. Yes, Mackenzie Blackwood has been fantastic, but he wasn't here the entire year. So when it boils down after 82 games, it's just a 0.1 difference for the Stars. Power play 24.8 versus 22, giving the Avalanche the edge, and pound and kill in Dallas's favor, 82 versus 79.8. So Mikko Rantanen returning to Colorado will be a huge piece to element of the storyline to be concerned with. Actually, if we look at these numbers here first, comparing the Stars and the Avalanche, the Stars are quite literally limping into the postseason here on a 4-game losing streak, the worst of any team moving into the postseason, and tied with a couple other teams for the least amount of wins in the last 10 games, 3-5-2 in their last 10, the 4-game losing streak. Jason Robertson currently listed as week to week. Heiskanen still a question mark. Nils Lundqvist probably not coming back. Yes, Tyler Seguin is back now, but is that enough to combat how hot the Avalanche have been? Gabriel Landeskog, their captain, which gives a huge psychological boost when you think about the sports psychology of it all and the morale of it all. Huge boost for the Colorado Avalanche, as he last played when they won the Stanley Cup. They won their season finale. They're 5-4-1 in their last 10 games. When you look at Colorado's scoring, of course, Nathan MacKinnon, one of the top players in the league. Cale Makar, 92 points. No one else getting this. 92 points with 30 goals. I know there's a lot of hype around Lane Hudson and everything, but it cannot be overshadowed what Cale Makar did this year as a defenseman, scoring 30 goals. 32 for MacKinnon, 30 for him, 92 points. Then after that, it gets interesting because yes, no one's close to Makar or MacKinnon, but when you think about points per game, Drouin 37 in 43 and he's healthy. Nichushkin 34 in 43 and he's healthy. Brock Nelson 13 in 19 since being acquired. So when you think about points per game, it's not as close to McKinnon's 116, but it's a lot closer than a drop from 92 to the next player having 45. And the reason I'm jumping over Mikko Rantanen, if you didn't know, is because he is now with the Dallas Stars. He was traded away. So I don't think the offense is as concerning as it might look as on paper. Dallas, meanwhile, Matt Duchene ended point per game this season, 30 goals from him. The Stars have 3 30-goal scorers and one close at Rupe Hintz with 28. Jason Robertson, 80-point season. He is out week to week, so I doubt he plays in round 1. That's a huge blow, 35 goals and 80 points. Wyatt Johnson will have to have a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. Yes, Rupe Hintz has been great this year as well, but can all that responsibility be on Duchene, Johnston, Hintz? Thomas Harley, great production, 50 points in 78 games. Jamie Benn turning back the clock a little bit, close to 50 points. When you think about Mikko Rantanen, though, 18 points in 20 games, again, point per game, he would be up here with the right between Robertson and Johnston. So the offense in Dallas isn't going to just be non-existent without Jason Robertson. But when you think about the depth that the Avalanche have in their lineup and the reinforcement they're getting with Landeskog, and also factoring in how weak, I suppose, the Stars have been in their final 10 games, I believe that's where the Avalanche take the series. Yes, Jake Ottinger can be relied upon. He's shown up in the playoffs before. This season wasn't the best of his career, but still very good. 2.59 goals against, 909 save percentage. But Mackenzie Blackwood has been crazy. Again, not enough people are really realizing this. 2.33 goals against average, 913 save percentage, and their backup Scott Wedgwood, you can rely on him. 1.99 goals against, 917 save percentage. Take that into account as well for any injuries. Casey DeSmith is doing probably about the same as Jake Ottinger. Could Scott Wedgwood pick up as easily from where Mackenzie Blackwood leaves off? as compared to Casey DeSmith having to pick up where Jake Ottinger leaves off should there be some sort of injury. Always got to factor that in as well. Where is the depth? Where is the positional depth? That's always going to play a factor. So all that to say, although the Stars won 50 games and they have the home ice advantage, I do believe the Avalanche, with their deadline acquisitions, with Landeskog joining, with their current health situation, I'm sorry Dallas, but I think the Avalanche breeze through in 5 games. So Winnipeg versus the Avalanche, versus Colorado, yes, for the second round matchup that we'll get to later on. Now on to Vegas and Minnesota. This one, I'm sorry Wild fans, but I think the Vegas Golden Knights are licking their lips for this matchup. When you compare the season totals, the Vegas Golden Knights were scoring 0.6 goals per game more than the Wild. Goals against per game, they're allowing 0.2 less than Mini. Power play 28.3 versus 20.9. That is a large discrepancy. And penalty kill 75.7 versus 72.4 in Vegas's favor. This is the 3 seed versus the 13 seed. Vegas finishing third best in the NHL, almost second, just right behind the Caps by 1 point. They're entering the postseason going 6-2-2 in their last 10, while the Wild are 5-3-2 in their last 10. Couple of wins to end off the season. Negative 11 goal differential does not bode very well when you're playing against a team that had a plus 56 and was, if you think about all these teams tied at 277, fourth highest in goals for. So that's going to be a big problem for the Minnesota Wild, who outside of Kirill Kaprizov, who's now healthy, and Matt Boldy, don't have a lot of support. So Vegas Golden Knights, Jack Eichel, 94-point season. No one else really around that number. Mark Stone, 67 and 66, so that's above point per game. Thomas Hertl was healthy with 61 points. That's awesome. Dorofeyev had a huge emergence. Barbashev's finding himself and being that consistent 50-point guy now. The defense is healthy and has been contributing, as Shea Theodore has 57 points in 67 games. Pietrangelo, Hanifin. You have the pickup of Riley Smith, who has 11 points in 21 games since he returned to Las Vegas. Even William Karlsson back and healthy, 29 and 53. So Vegas, just a lot more depth and scoring options than the Wild do, as they had no one who scored above 27 goals. Yes, Kaprizov was on a 50-goal pace, but over the course of the entire season, 27 from Boldy, 24 from Rossi, and no one else hitting 20. And when it comes to the points, 73 from Boldy, 60 from Marco Rossi. Great seasons. The Wild have a lot to be excited about with the $14 million to the Ghosts coming off the books next offseason. There is a ton to be excited about in Minnesota, but facing off against the Vegas Golden Knights in round 1, I just don't really see them being able to compete at all. Boldy, Rossi, Kaprizov, Zuccarello, then it drops to Frederick Gaudreau is 5th in your team scoring with 37, Marcus Johansson 34. Yes, Joel Eriksson Ek 29 and 46, and he's healthy. And the defense, although it might not produce like crazy, is strong when healthy again. I'm sadly not seeing it for the Minnesota Wild, who will have Philip Gustafsson as their starter, 2.56 goals against, 914 save percentage, which is comparable to what Adin Hill has done this year, 2.47 goals against versus 906 save percentage. But even if it doesn't come down to the goaltending, which I don't think it will, just the two teams themselves, the top 6 versus the top 6, the bottom 6 versus the bottom 6, I think Vegas is just better everywhere. So of the entire first round, I know I sometimes don't want to offend anyone, so sometimes you feel tempted to say 5 games. Maybe they'll steal one in there, but I don't think this is going to be the case. I think Vegas will sweep Minnesota and move on to round 2, where they will face the winner of the Kings and the Oilers, who are in a 4th rematch. Now, the last 3 years, the Oilers won in 7 3 years ago, in 6 2 years ago, in 5 last year, and now face off against the Kings this year. Maybe they have to sweep them this year so as to allow the Kings to win in 7 next year. But anyways, the Kings come into it with home ice advantage now, the 2nd in the Pacific versus the 3rd in the Pacific, 105 points versus 101. The Oilers are scoring 0.1 goals for per game more, while the Kings are allowing 0.4 goals against less per game. Power play 23.7 versus 17.9 for the Oilers, and penalty kill 81.4 versus 78.2 for the Kings. Now, looking at these two teams, of all the teams that are facing off against each other, just like when I had mentioned between Colorado and Dallas, only 3 rankings divide these two teams, which ties it for the closest matchup in this first round, the 6th seed versus the 9th seed. So the Kings are coming into the postseason very hot, the hottest team in the last 10 games, 8-2-0 moving into the postseason, including a loss that came in the last game of the year, and also the best home team in the league. 31-6-4 at home. Now they're sub 500 on the road, 17-19-5, which is a very odd discrepancy to see. But that's, well, not okay, but it's just good to see that they have home ice advantage where they've been the best team in the league this year, at least tied with the Hurricanes. But when it comes to comparing the overtime losses and the regulation losses, then the Kings would get the edge. Anyways, the Oilers, meanwhile, 7-3-0, also very good entering the postseason. So they've had a great record in the last 10 games. They won their season finale, and they're pretty even on both the home ice and away, 25-13-3, 23-16-2. It's going to come down to the little nitty-gritty elements of these two teams who have seen each other a lot the last few years, a rivalry during the regular season. Now, Adrian Kempe, what a year from him, 35 goals, 73 points. Kopitar, 67. Kevin Fiala, 35 goals, 2 35-goal scorers for the LA Kings. Warren Fogle, quietly a 24-goal season. Don't forget that. Quinton Byfield, 54, continuing to grow into the player that the Kings are looking forward to having. Phil Danault, one of the premier, and by premier I mean top 10, top 15 defensive players in the league. Alexis Laferriere, very good 42-point season. But not a lot that they did at the deadline. Of course, Andrei Kuzmenko was their guy, and he has been working out. 17 points in 22 games from him. Drew Doughty, fully healthy now, 17 points in 30 games. So that's great news. And meanwhile, Darcy Kemper, who I have fondly called Darcy Fraudster in the past, he has somehow, I guess this is just me not watching enough LA Kings games, had a 2.00 goals against average this season with a .922 save percentage and 5 shutouts, going 31-11-7. So if he can stay healthy, David Riddick was so if he can stay healthy and continue that ridiculously torrid pace that he has been on, I think that's going to be enough to possibly shock the Edmonton Oilers here. Yes, the Oilers are, quote, healthy with Draisaitl and McDavid. Now, Ekholm's going to be out for at least the entirety of round one, if not further. Evander Kane is a question mark. So I gotta say, if there was ever a year for the Kings to do it, this is the year. Draisaitl and McDavid both scoring 100+ points. Look at that. Evan Bouchard, 67. But after that, Nuge, 49. Hyman this year, 44. Ekholm's out. Nurse is Darnell Nurse. Corey Perry, Connor Brown. It's, fun storylines to say, hey, Jeff Skinner, third line guy, made the postseason. Hey, Victor Arvidsson, former 30-goal guy. Hey, he scored 15 this year. Adam Henrique's getting older. He's 34 now. He scored 27. You're having to rely too much on guys like Podkolzin and Kapanen when you really shouldn't have to. Of course, the deadline picking up Jake Wallman, 8 points in 15 games. He's been having to fill in a lot on that. Well, just do a lot on that blue line there in Edmonton. And when it comes to the goaltending, yes, Stuart Skinner, I think, saw improvement this year, right? 2.81 goals against average. What did you last year? Actually, no, 2.62 last year. So it wasn't his best year, actually. I remember last year wasn't great, but this year was even a little bit worse at 896 save percentage. So Stuart Skinner, not really at his best, but also not super off what he's usually done. So when you take the fact that the Kings have 2 35-goal scorers, somehow one of the best goalies in the league right now, and the Oilers have not been healthy, I think this is finally the year that the LA Kings do it. I'm not trying to be edgy and McDavid, Draisaitl out in round one, or just, fourth time's the charm, it just has to happen eventually. No, I truly think that the LA Kings can take this matchup. I'll say it's in 7 games because of the McDavid and the Draisaitl factor, but I could see it in 6 as well. So I'm going to say 7 there, 4 here, 5 here, and I said 6 there as the Blues will surprise a little bit, and that is your first round in the Western Conference. Now, scrolling back up and getting to the Eastern Conference, starting with the Battle of Ontario, the Maple Leafs versus the Senators, the 4 seed versus the 12 seed in the NHL. The Leafs going 52-26-4 versus the Senators going 45-30-7. When you compare the two, goals for per game, the Leafs are scoring a third of a goal more at 3.3, and the goals against is actually quite similar, just 2.8 to 2.9. 0.1 edge to the Maple Leafs. Power play also very close, 24.8 versus 23.8, 1% edge to the Maple Leafs. And penalty kill, 77.9 to 77.7, 0.2% edge going to the Leafs again. So really not too much to divide these two when you look at the numbers like this. We have to dive a little bit deeper. Over the course of the season, the Senators did have the season series, so that's one element to keep in consideration. The Senators have a lot less to lose. I think there's a lot less pressure on them. A young team getting better, taking that next step versus the Maple Leafs, who I don't even need to explain how much heartache they've been through. They finally saw round 2 last year for the first time in years and years and years. Now they want to make sure they get back to that second round again, and then the next step would be at least a conference final berth. But they're not there quite yet. The Leafs, thankfully, are entering the postseason as the hottest team in the league, going 9-1-0 in their last 10. They're on a 5-game winning streak, which is also the best of all the teams making the postseason. 27-13-1 at home, 25-13-3 on the road. While the Senators are 6-2-2, also fairly hot entering the postseason, but their away record of 18-19-4 is a bit concerning. At home, 27-11-3 is great. Home ice is going to the Maple Leafs here. So the Senators being able to do it in Toronto will be what decides if they can have some life in this series. When it comes to the scoring this season, the Leafs, of course, always have their top guys: Marner, Nylander, Matthews, Tavares, who had a resurgence this year, Matthew Knies, 58 points, Morgan Riley, Morgan Riley, Bobby McMann, the scoring option there is a 20-goal guy, Nick Robertson, 15 goals, in 69 games. The defense, when healthy, gives me some confidence. I'm not super confident in the abilities of Morgan Riley these days, but when you think about Brandon Carlo, who was acquired, when you think about Jake McCabe, these are guys who I have more confidence in for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, question mark with his injuries and everything as well. Scott Laughton, also deadline acquisition, just 4 points in 20 games. I know he's not there to be the scoring second line center or anything like that, but I don't think he's really met a lot of Leafs fans' expectations, I gotta say. If I could say so, maybe I'm wrong. I don't think Laughton has really met that many expectations. Max Pacioretty, I probably won't even play anyways. Tanev, nice to see him healthy. He scored his 3rd goal of the season the other night to cap off the season. So a lot to be confident in for the Maple Leafs in their roster, and their 1-2 punch with the goaltending both have been great. Anthony Stolarz, .926 save percentage, 2.14 goals against average. You gotta think that he gets the start as a guy with some more experience. Joseph Wall, the younger guy, yes, he played more, but the numbers weren't as great. Still 27 wins, still a very viable option should they need to turn to him. I think Anthony Stolarz and his 4 shutouts through 21 wins would be the option, at least for game 1. Now, the Toronto Maple Leafs, with Stolarz, let's say, between the pipes, and with that top 6 of scoring, facing off against the Senators, can Tim Stützle and Drake Batherson, and even Brady Tkachuk, who should be healthy, 55 and 72, can that core do enough to break through the Leafs? I don't think they can unless we start going to the intangibles. Can Brady Tkachuk be enough of a pest? Can Jake Sanderson shut down those top guys? Can even Ridley Gregg be enough of a pest too? There are a lot of pests here in Ottawa, which is a good thing if you're a Senators fan. Can David Perron provide some experience as a 36-year-old? Dylan Cousins getting to his first postseason, how will he perform? A lot of X factors that we don't quite know about. But also, Linus Ullmark, he's no slouch either between the pipes. 910 save percentage, 2.7 goals against average. Been a bit of an up and down year at times for Linus Ullmark, but still 25 wins under his belt. And the Senators have a certain swagger, a certain confidence to them moving into this first-round matchup against a rival that they know very well and have beaten consistently throughout the 2024-25 season. All of that said, it's hard to side with the wild card Sens over the Maple Leafs without being, LOL Leafs, they're going to choke in round 1. Is that a possibility? Absolutely. More likely than even previous years. It was more likely that they would lose in round 1 when they were facing the Lightning consistently and teams like that. So is it as likely that they'll lose in round 1 this year? Perhaps not, but I think the Senators will surprise a lot of people, and I have the series going to 7, but the Leafs will just squeak it out. I would love to see Ottawa do it, and I think they even could, but for the bracket, I'm going to side with the Maple Leafs in this one. Just probably the closest of all the matchups so far. All right, now on to the Lightning and the Panthers, the Battle of Florida, 2 teams who know each other, again, very, very well. Goals for per game this season, the Lightning have quite an edge here, one of the largest edges between any matchup, 3.6 versus 0.6, more than a half goal per game more than the Panthers, while also allowing 0.1 goals against less per game. Power play of 25.9 versus the Panthers 23.5, and pound and kill 81.6 versus the Panthers 80.7. Again, small differences there for the special teams, but it's more the scoring. I'm going to jump straight to the scoring on this one. It's more the scoring for me when it comes between the Panthers and the Lightning. This should be a high-octane series. Yes, we're playing with 2 great goaltenders in Bobrovsky and Vasilevsky, but I think both are going to have some shaky save percentages because you're dealing with Kucherov, Hagel, Point, Gensel, 4 players who scored 80-plus points, and the Panthers have Reinhardt as the only one who scored 81, yes, but Barkov 71 and 67 over point per game, so that's another player who in a full season would be at 80 plus. Tkachuk 57 and 52, another player who would be 80 plus. And then everybody else, yes, that's only 3 as compared to Tampa's 4. But that's still with Verhaeghe 53, Bennett 51 and 76. And kind of like that Brady Tkachuk factor I was talking about earlier, that pestness that he can bring while still being a 25-goal threat. Anton Lundell and his two-way ability cannot be understated. Aaron Ekblad will be back for Game 3, I believe, when he's back from his suspension. Evan Rodriguez, some depth scoring. Samoskevich has been really good as a 21-year-old. Gustav Forsling, always solid on the blue line. And then more depth pieces for the Panthers after that. But Seth Jones also on the blue line. 9 points in 21 games since he came around. Brad Marchand's not been the slam dunk that they were hoping for just yet. Just 2 goals and 4 points in 10 games. He was dealing with a little bit of an injury at one point this year. He's 36, so allow him to slow down a little bit. But I think that the Panthers and even Brad Marchand himself are expecting things to turn up when it comes to the postseason. They're reigning Stanley Cup champions. They have a lot to play for. They're banged up, though. That's the biggest thing. I'm hyping up the Panthers, but they are banged up. They've been through a lot. They've played a lot of hockey the last few years. So have the Lightning, but they seem to have a bit more of a hop in their step. Look at their goal scoring as well. They have 4 35-plus goal scorers. If the Panthers are playing anyone else, they had any other path, I'd see them going to the Eastern Conference Final, Stanley Cup Final. But facing off against the Lightning in round 1, oh boy, this is the toughest match. The winner of this series may very well be the eventual Stanley Cup champion. So many things that both teams do right. Anton Lundell versus Anthony Cirelli. Victor Hedman versus Aaron Ekblad. There's a lot of comparables that can be made between the two teams. Vasilevsky this season, 63 appearances, always the workhorse, 2.16 goals against average. I don't think enough people are talking about Vasky this season because of Connor Hellebuck, a 921 save percentage, while Sergei Bobrovsky has been good, 2.44 goals against average, but a 906 save percentage. Face him against, again, I'll say it, the very high octane offense of the Tampa Bay Lightning. This is going to be an explosive series. I cannot wait to watch it, to see the eventual Stanley Cup champions. To see the reigning Stanley Cup champions go out in round 1 is crazy. I know it's crazy to say it, but I do think the Lightning might have the edge. Let's finish off by talking about the pace they're on moving into this postseason. The Lightning, the 7 seed, the Panthers, the 11 seed. The Lightning 5-2-3 in their last 10. The Panthers 3-6-1. They've been banged up. They haven't had their full lineup. Yes, I get it, but still a goal differential of plus 29 versus plus 75 for the Lightning. There's a lot of reasons to say that the Panthers could still pull it off, but when I look at all the numbers right here and take into consideration the season that has been and the health as well, if the Panthers were fully healthy, I might go another way, but I think the Lightning take it in a 7-game series. 6 might be a possibility. I might even lean to 6, but it'll feel like a 7-game series because these games are going to be tight, hard-fought battles. So even if it doesn't go to 7, those 6 games will be tight each time. Moving on now to the Washington Capitals versus the Montreal Canadiens, Le Canadien Montréal. I'm a Canadiens fan. I love the Habs. I'd love to say the Canadiens are going to win and go all the way to the Cup, but let's break it down. Let's be rational here. The number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, Washington Capitals, the 2nd seed overall versus the 17 seed Canadiens. 3.5 goals per game, so a half of a goal more per game scored by the Capitals this season than the Canadiens, while also allowing 0.4 goals less per game. The Canadiens are allowing more than they're scoring. The only team in the playoffs to be doing that, I believe, right? 3 versus 3.2. Power play 23.5 for the Caps versus 20.1 for the Canadiens, and penalty kill 82 versus 80.9. So the special teams, well, the penalty kill isn't too far off. The power play goes to the Capitals' edge. That's just Ovechkin power play percentage, aka Ovechkin percentage. And the Caps versus the Canadiens should be a fun matchup, as the Montreal Canadiens are entering the postseason as the youngest team in NHL history to make the playoffs. And the Washington Capitals, since winning the Stanley Cup, have had, I believe, 5 first-round exits. So coming into the first round as the not only favorites, but the top seed in the East, they have a lot to play for. 4-6-0, though, in their final 10 games. Yes, the Canadiens were hot to make the playoffs. 7-1-2 in their final 10 games. There's a lot of reasons to think that the Canadiens will give the Capitals a hard time, you have to admit. When you look at the Montreal Canadiens scoring, Nick Suzuki, 89-point season, the first 80-plus point season since Alex Kovalev. We've been hearing that stat a lot. 30 goals from him, 37 from Cole Caulfield, who finally got a full, healthy season under his belt. Lane the Train Hudson, 66 points for the rookie. Slavkovsky, 51. He's still finding himself. Gallagher with a resurgence, but look, it does fall off rather quickly. Slavkovsky, 51 to Gallagher, 38. Evans, 36. Patrick Laine, 20 goals, 33 in 52 games. All right. Then you have more of those role players. Dvorak, Evans, Heineman, even Alex Newhook, only 26 points on the year, despite the speed and the tenacity that he brings to the game. That's great. That's going to be very helpful in the playoffs. But the Canadiens I don't think, have enough scorers to really combat what the Capitals will be bringing to the table. When you think about who has been joining the team recently, you've seen a little bit of Oliver Kapanen. You've seen, of course, Ivan Demidov. So with Demidov, with Caulfield, Suzuki, Hudson, Slavkovsky, such a young, exciting team, you're going to see some good hockey. You're going to see a good series. And of course, Samuel Montembeault doing the best that he could do. 2.8 goals against average, 902 save percentage. He should be the starter all the way through, even though Dobesh has shown himself to also be a viable option. The Capitals, however, they have their veterans and they are going to be able to get the job done, I think, unfortunately, as a Canadiens fan. But I think the Caps are really going to be able to do it this year and get through round number 1. And look at just the average age over here, right? Just much more experience in this lineup. Guys who have been here like John Carlson and Alex Ovechkin, and guys who have just been in the league longer, like a Mangiapane, like a Dylan Strome, whatever else it might be. So it's not just age and experience that gets it through. Technically, both teams only have one 80-plus point player. So the Capitals are not your typical super exciting 1 seed here in the East. But Ovechkin still 44 goals and 73 points in 65 games. Protas out of nowhere, 30 goals and 66 points this season. Is that an unsustainable shooting percentage and everything? Yes. Will he go back down next season? Yes. But for right now, just ride that wave, baby. Pierre-Luc Dubois, I was looking forward to this since the trade happened. I knew this was going to be the case. Give him the wingers that the Capitals have, and Dubois did finally thrive a little bit this year with 66 points. Tom Wilson, big resurgence here from him, 65 points and 33 goals. Connor McMichael out of nowhere with that crazy first half, but he's still been good in the second, 57 points from him. John Carlson still providing. Jake Chychrun, a huge presence on that blue line for the Capitals too. I love Rasmus Sandin, and then you have guys like Matt Waugh and Martin Verheuvry. The blue line for the Capitals, I think, are going to make the difference. Yes, the goaltending has been crazy. Logan Thompson with his 2.49 goals against average and 910 save percentage. If he's healthy, that goes a long way. If not, Charlie Lindgren hasn't quite been as good, so that's going to be a place where the Canadiens could have a bit of a foothold, but it's the blue line. The blue line for the Capitals has just been something else. Carlson, Chychrun, Sandin, Verheuvry, Waugh, and Trevor Van Riemsdyk, those 6 guys right there, that is a formidable blue line. The goaltending is a bit of a toss-up. If it's Thompson versus Montembeault, then Thompson gets the edge. If it's Lindgren, then Montembeault might get the edge. But that blue line versus blue line goes to the Capitals. Scoring versus scoring, again to the Capitals, but the Canadiens are closer. In general, I'm looking forward to a fantastic series. I think the Canadiens could do it. As I think the Senators could beat the Leafs, I think there's a universe where the Canadiens can do it. That's a bit of probably some bias deep in my subconscious speaking, I'll be honest, but I will give it to the Caps. And just for fun, why not? I'll say a 7-game series. As a Canadiens fan, I'll say 7, but I'll still hold myself to some honesty and say the Capitals take it. But I'm just looking forward to some good hockey there. Now, this last matchup, the Hurricanes versus the Devils. Metro 2 versus Metro 3. There's some interesting numbers in this series as the Hurricanes are scoring 0.3 goals more per game than the Devils, but the Devils are allowing 0.2 goals less than the Hurricanes. They are the only statistical or standings, whatever you want to call it, underdog, the lower seed. They're the only lower seed team to have a better goals against per game in this postseason through all 8 matchups, 2.7 versus 2.9. And the power play, huge difference here too, huge difference, almost 10%, 28.2 versus 18.7, while the pony kill is close, 83.6 for the Hurricanes and 82.7 for the Devils. If Jack Hughes was on this team, it might be, well, the Devils would have finished in a different spot, that's for sure. But if Jack Hughes was here, I think the Hurricanes would be a lot more afraid. Now, the Hurricanes, I think they still kind of should be afraid. I think in most cases, the Hurricanes are the odds favorite for the Stanley Cup as the 10 seed. That's really something. That's because they're thinking about, okay, who would they face in round 2 and round 3 and everything like that. When you look at Money Puck, for example, and the possibilities, the percentages or whatever of making round 2, the Hurricanes are 57.3, 1, 2, 3, 4, only the 5th highest chances to make the second round. But when you look at the chances to win the cup, they're the highest at 10.5. So that's really interesting. The 5th highest percentage to make it through to round 2, but the highest percentage chance to win the Stanley Cup at this point. Very interesting. There's, if you're curious about the rest of the numbers here, it is for round 2, for round 3, for making the final. The Money Puck odds would tell you Vegas versus Carolina for the Stanley Cup final. And to win the cup, 10.5, the Hurricanes get the edge over the Golden Knights. And then it goes Winnipeg, Florida, Toronto, Colorado, and so on. So back to the matchup here, the Hurricanes. Maybe I'm just being edgy by saying this or something, but I think the Hurricanes, I think they're kind of fraudulent. I think they're a bit fraudulent. I don't know. I'm just not convinced by their center depth. I don't think their blue line is what it has been in recent years. Burns getting older. I don't think Orlov has been as great this year. Don't get me wrong, still a great team, and I still, spoiler alert, think they'll make it through to round 2, but I don't think I'd say that they're, of the 16 teams, my Stanley Cup favorite. Is that fair? I'm not saying they're frauds. I'm not saying they're bums, but I am saying I think it's fraudulent to call them the Stanley Cup favorites. They're 3-6-1 entering the postseason on a 3-game losing streak. The Devils are entering having lost their last game of the season, 5-5-0 in their last 10. The goal differential isn't that different, plus 20 versus plus 33, with the Hurricanes having a plus 13 edge. When we look at the scoring as well, Sebastian Aho, no 80-plus point players or anything here. Sebastian Aho, 74 points on the season. Jarvis, really impressive, 32 goals and 67 points. Then it goes down to Svechnikov, who had a really bad year. We got to be honest here. 20 goals and 48 points from Svechnikov. Ghost 45 is fun to see. Roslovic, etc. So there's a lot to be excited about for the Hurricanes. Nikishin, Blake, players to be excited about. But for this season, even, Scott Morrow, just a few coming to my mind, Kochetkov. But for this season, I don't think the Hurricanes have it. Between Svechnikov not being on his game and between the center depth not being convincing, and I don't know how much responsibility you're going to give to a guy like Kotkaniemi versus Jordan Staal, who's now 35. Yes, he's your captain. Yes, he's a machine. Yes, he's going to be doing a lot in the room. But I'm not sure if, like Mark Jankowski, who's been playing some top 6 minutes as of late. Yes, 8 goals in 19 games. I'm not sure if he's really your guy. Meanwhile, goaltending has been between Kochetkov and Anderson. Both are sub 900 in their save percentages. Both are allowing 2.5 plus goals against per game. I'm not convinced by the Hurricanes to be the Stanley Cup champions. Meanwhile, the Devils, without Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt leading the way with 88 points, Nico Hischier 69, Timo Meier 53. Timo Meier almost in that same Svechnikov disappointment category, but I think at least Timo Meier brings a different level of physicality and so on. Luke Hughes 44, Stefan Nason a surprising 22 goals and 41 points. Dougie Hamilton, if he could be healthy, 40 and 64 on the year. I don't know if he's going to be healthy though for round 1. Someone has to let me know in the comments. I forget what the latest report on him was. And then the depth here, like Brett Pesce on defense, a product of the Hurricane system. Jonathan Kovacevic, really incredible performance this year from like a 7th defenseman waiver from the Jets to the Canadiens, and then ended up finding his spot on this blue line in New Jersey. The defense for the Devils is impressive, but I don't think they quite have enough scoring to do much beyond making some noise in round 1. I don't think they could do much more than that. Jacob Markstrom, 900 save percentage, 2.5 goals against average. Neither team tandems of goalies, even if you include Jake Allen, between the Devils and the Hurricanes really convince me. So I'm going to go with the Hurricanes. I have them doing it in probably 5 or 6 games. I'll give them 5, but I don't see them doing much. Whether it's the Capitals or the Canadiens who win that first round matchup, I think that either team beats the Hurricanes. Either the Capitals beat the Hurricanes and they keep on rolling, or the Canadiens have some sort of fairy dust, the power of friendship, and they beat the Hurricanes. But I don't think the Hurricanes make it further than round 2. So we had said the Maple Leafs in 7, Lightning, I'm going to say in 6. No, 6 or 7. Let's go crazy and say 7. The Canadiens are going to make some noise and push it to 6, and the Hurricanes are going to take down the Devils in 5. So there are the first round matchups, ladies and gentlemen. Pretty much that's it for this video. Just to quickly say a little bit more about these next matchups, if they were to come to be, let's say. If it was the next round now in the Western Conference, the Jets facing off against the Avalanche. Looking at these numbers, taking into consideration everything that I said previously, the Avalanche's offense versus the Jets' defense, aka Connor Hellebuck. If Ehlers is still out, I think the Avalanche take it. I'm going to say the Avalanche in 7. I don't mean to disrespect the Jets. I think that they could definitely win the Stanley Cup this year. Absolutely they could. But just for the sake of the prediction, I'm going to say the Avalanche move through in 7. Really, this might be the best series of the entire postseason if it comes to be. And in the other series here in the West, it's going to come down to Darcy Kemper. If Darcy Kemper is standing on his head and Adin Hill is just being, Adin Hill, which is fine, and the Kings can be carried by Kevin Fiala's goal scoring and Philip Deneau's two-way play, they might be able to break through Vegas. But if Vegas is healthy with Jack Eichel and Mark Stone and their blue line, I think even though the goaltending goes to the Kings, I think Vegas would take it in a 7-game series. So I'm going to say Vegas in 6 or 7 against the Kings. I probably lean 6, but 6 or 7, as that would be a good matchup as well. I think the Kings could do it, but I would say Vegas versus Colorado in the Western Conference Final. Over in the East, Toronto versus Tampa Bay. Had I clicked on the 2 numbers here? Sorry, if you just want to see the analysis of the matchup between Vegas and Los Angeles. Now, the Maple Leafs versus the Lightning. If the Lightning just took down the reigning Stanley Cup champions and they're continuing to have the Hagel, Gensel, Point, everybody offense, Vasilevsky is still doing what he's doing. Anthony Stolarz will have to be matching that. Plus the Maple Leafs, a team that hasn't really come through when they need to the most, facing off against the Lightning that has so much experience at this point with their Stanley Cup championships and everything. I think, I'm not trying to be the meme, but I think the Lightning would beat the Leafs and they would have another second round exit. While here in the other matchup between the 2 Eastern Conference teams remaining, like I said, whether it's the Capitals or the Canadiens, I think the Hurricanes are out round 2, sadly. So I'm going to say Caps versus Lightning and the Avalanche versus the Golden Knights for the conference finals. Between Colorado and Vegas, it's hard not to say Colorado with Makar, with McKinnon, Drouin, Landeskog, the point production they've been getting, Nichushkin. If Mackenzie Blackwood is still doing what he can do, I think it's an even goalie matchup. I give the offense to the Avalanche. I think they can stay healthier. I think they have the better depth. I don't know if I have as much confidence in like Victor Olofsson having to move up the lineup, let's say, for Vegas. So I'm going to say that I side with the Avalanche here. It's probably pretty basic to say that the Avalanche make it to the Stanley Cup final, but they have to go through some tough teams here. Dallas, thankfully they have some injuries. Winnipeg, the President's Trophy winners. Vegas, who just won the Cup a few years ago as well, and they're entering as the 3 seed. And then in the Eastern Conference, the Lightning facing the Capitals. If the Capitals make it this far, I think with Thompson healthy and the vibe of let's do it for Ovi, if the Canadiens can make the Stanley Cup final because they were doing it for Weber and Price, I think that same vibe can be let's get it for Ovi. Who knows what kind of team will be next year? Yes, he's still here next season, but you can't take any opportunity for granted. Let's get it done now. The Lightning are going to have a lot of offense, but that Capitals blue line could shut them down, and I think we could see some vintage Ovi. Let's go crazy. I'm going to say it's the Avalanche versus the Capitals in the Stanley Cup final. So is that a crazy groundbreaking prediction? Maybe not, but I like this. I like it for him. At least the storylines are making sense. Who knows what's going to develop in the real world? Avalanche versus Capitals in the final with that Capitals blue line that we were just talking about, with that Avalanche offense and the depth of options that they have to them. This is going to be a crazy series. And by the way, I will say Colorado in 6. Let's say Colorado in 6 and Washington in 7 in the conference finals. I don't usually say 4 or 5. I said it a couple times in the first round, but when you get this deep, it's hard not to say 6 or 7. Yeah, sometimes it goes 4 or 5. And in the Stanley Cup final, Colorado versus Washington with their deadline pickups, with the team that they have built, I think I got to give the edge to the Avalanche to win the 2025 Stanley Cup. Tie-breaking question. Ooh, I won't show you in case I could win a car or something. Okay, bracket save. Actually, I think it says it down here. Yeah, okay, so I said 31. I just calculated a few ideas of some scores in my head. I'm going to say tiebreaker 31. Okay, secret's out. And the Avalanche will win the cup, let's say, in a 6-game series. All right, so there is my analysis, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot that we could be talking about, like when we went over to Money Puck previously. If we're talking about expected goals for, expected goal differential, there's a lot to say about every matchup. We could talk about this for hours on end. When you look deeper at that expected goal differential, the Hurricanes, for example, it goes a bit further into my idea that I don't think they're the favorites. They are scoring way less than expected and also allowing more than should be allowed. So the expected goal differential at 40.27, which refers to expected goals for and expected goals against, yes, 201 and 161. We look at the goal differential above expected, the lowest among Eastern Conference teams at negative 31.27. The Oilers are in that similar category of negative 34.4. That's why I think I have the Kings taking it in round 1, while the Leafs are playing over their heads at 34.19 goals differential above expected. You have the Lightning at 32.82, Winnipeg at 31.6. There's all kinds of different stats that you could think about, and you could sit here all day long looking at those numbers. So I'll end it off there because I don't want to do it for 4 hours. I think that about wraps up my thoughts for the first round matchups in the 2025 NHL postseason. Now, make sure you get in your bracket for the channel bracket challenge. If we look at leagues right here, is it going to take me to my league? My leagues, there you go. So Data782 is the league name, is created by Hobbsy. Thank you very much. So click on that league. You would need to follow the link, I suppose. Or you know what, you should just be able, if let's say, imagine I'm just looking for it, if I look at all leagues and I just type in data782, I should be able to find it rather easily without even having a link. Yes, exactly. If it asks you for a password, the password is just data782. I think it's with a capital D. And that's about it. So we'd love to have you join the bracket challenge. I think we had about a dozen people, or close to 24 people last year. So the winner can get, usually it's the created player in a franchise mode series. So that'll be an exciting little piece of something to be fighting for. And we're also doing a Discord pool where you're choosing players instead of teams. So join us in the Discord server, link in the description to join in on the playoff pool. Join the bracket challenge with the Data782 league name, and leave me a comment down here on YouTube or over in that Discord server talking about what you think about my predictions, what your predictions are, and where you might agree or disagree with me in the points that I raised. So thanks for watching, everyone. Leave a like, and of course, subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell to be notified when we go live, when we have uploads here on the channel between our franchise mode series, NHL 25, MLB The Show 25, career simulations, and of course, as always, breakdowns and analysis in the real world of hockey. And to finish off, a huge thank you goes out to Hobbsy, Wild Bronco, Intelligent Dice, and Cagney, who are the first 4 channel members in channel history, as channel memberships were just launched today. Click the join button below the video to find out what perks you would get and why you would want to become a channel member. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Enjoy the postseason.